Why don't I get us kicked off, if that's okay. Good morning, everyone. Welcome. I'm Heather Burke. I am the Vice President and co-founder of Impact 100. And I'm so glad to welcome you to the first of our grant application sessions for the 2020 cycle and our first such Zoom conference. So this is uncharted territory for us as well. And appreciate everyone making the time and rolling with this new technology, which I hope will be an improvement in a lot of ways too. Necessity is the mother of invention, right? You're going to meet a lot of our team today, and the slide here lists just a few members of our wonderful grants team. I won't go through them all, but you've spoken with many of them, and they'll be introducing themselves as they come into different parts of the presentation, and you'll see all of our general contact information is included here. Just flip to the next slide. Wow, thank you. So, as you know, at Impact 100 Jersey Coast, we started the mission to unite women and collectively fund transformative grants in Monmouth County. And our goal through our grant making is to raise awareness of our community's most pressing needs and fund transformational grants for high impact projects to addressing those needs, put forward by people, talented people such as yourselves and the wonderful organizations you work for. So we bring women together to gather those funds, and then it relies on you to bring those wonderful ideas so we can put those dollars to work. Could I see the next slide, please? I'm just seeing the logo. Oh, and this is a quick video that we wanted to share of our grants process at a high level overview of how the mechanics of that works. And then we'll be delving into a lot of these details.
At Impact 100 Jersey Coast, we pool our individual donations to award six-figure grants to local nonprofits. Every member and every donation has the chance to make a true impact on our community. Here's an inside look at our grant process. Eligible nonprofits submit applications for high-impact projects in one of 5 focus areas: arts and culture, children and families, education, environment, parks and recreation, and health and wellness. Our member-run focus area committees, or FACs, lead our grant review process. Step 1. FAC members are assigned to a committee and receive training. Step 2. FAC members independently review and score applications. Step 3. FAC members discuss and select projects that will receive site visits. Step 4. FAC sub-teams conduct on-site interviews to better understand each funding proposal. Step 5. FACs reconvene to discuss findings and nominate finalists. At the end of this process, FACs nominate grant finalists for the consideration of our entire membership. The selected nonprofit finalists present their projects to all Impact members at our annual meeting. Every member has an equal vote, and grant recipients are announced that night. The process doesn't stop there, because grantees provide periodic progress updates so that all the members can see the results and understand the impact our collective dollars make on the community. Our hands-on approach to giving leverages the dollars, passion, and experience of women in our community. To find out more about how you can get involved, visit our website at www.impact100jerseycoast.org.
All right, thank you so much. We're so glad to be able to produce that video this year, and it's a simple concept. Oh, whoops! Thank you. With a lot of moving parts, which is why we're going to delve into a lot of them today. But that's just a quick overview of how the concept works. And if you flip to the next slide, as you'll see, we're thrilled to have been able to make 10 high impact grants in our community to date, and to have funded all 5 of our focus areas at this point, which we were thrilled with this year. So our goal this year is to be able to fund all 5. That's been our campaign and going out to people to join as members. And our membership drive is still in full swing. So we encourage anyone out there who is interested in Impact or knows women who might be interested in joining Impact to join us in this endeavor. Our membership closes on March 15th, so we are in the home stretch. That said, if we do reach that goal, the process wouldn't change dramatically. Well, the mechanics of it wouldn't, but instead, at our annual meeting, instead of having 1 finalist from each category, we would have 2 finalists from each category. And then those 10 presenters, and there'd be 2 in each, and members would vote on 1 in each category. But we're still working toward that goal, and we look forward to sharing the news about what our final grant fund will be in a few short weeks. That said, I am going to turn the presentation of how this process works over to Rowena Crawford Phillips, our grants chair, and her wonderful team. And thank you again all so much for being with us here today, and best of luck in all the work you're doing.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you, Heather. We hope you enjoyed our little explainer video. That was a new addition, which we thought was a great tool for you to have an overview of our mission and also our grant review process. So that lives on our website. So by all means, do go and review that. But also, it's a great tool for you to share with others when explaining our impact process. So this is just a summary slide that you see up at the moment. It's very high level, and it really just summarizes the steps for you. 3 phases: the application stage, the review, and then the decision voting, and then obviously beyond that, the post-grant oversight. So some relevant dates in here for you. The first part of our process, which is the application, will kick off April 3rd, and that runs the 1st of June when the application is due. Grant review process from June through to the middle of October, and then the annual meeting this year will actually be held on the 18th of November. So this is a good reference slide, which just summarizes our whole process for you. So as the video described, we have 5 focus areas, and you are asked to apply into one of these areas. And you're asked to find the focus area that is the best fit for your project, not your overall organization or mission, but the best fit for your project. So all of the definitions are here, important for you when thinking about this, to refer to these definitions, and please reach out, because we have had some people say that they think that their project or program may fit in more than one, which we totally understand, and we'll talk about that a little bit more in a minute. But it is important that you choose one. We ask you that you do that. We can guide you as much as we can, but at the end, it's your application and your decision. But one thing to note is that both our arts and culture definitions and our environment definition includes education. So if your program is an arts education program or an environment education program, we ask that you submit into arts and culture and environment, not into our general focus area of education. So moving on, one thing that is absolutely at the core of our approach and philosophy at Impact is confidentiality and conflict of interest. We take this extremely seriously. We understand that you provide us with a great deal of sensitive information, and our focus area committees, and you'll have heard in the videos, sometimes that's referred to us as a FAC, which stands for Focus Area Committee. They are asked to sign a confidentiality statement, and they are asked to keep all details that they discuss during the grant review process confidential, and they don't discuss that outside of their committees. Conflict of interest is obviously incredibly important in order to ensure that our committee members are absolutely unbiased and objective and fair in their evaluation of our applications. So we have a conflict of interest policy, and we make sure that our members don't have any conflict. So for example, and we do encourage members of the nonprofit community, leaders at nonprofit organizations to apply, and we also would love them to be a member. So one of the things we're looking at is if you're, for example, the director at an arts organization, we would ask you not to sit, especially if it's an organization that's applying for a grant, you would obviously not be able to serve on that arts committee. So these are the steps in the application process, and really that was illustrated in the video, so there's no need to go through this. This is really just for your reference again. One of the important aspects just to highlight here is that the step one is the eligibility process. So that is a form which is actually going to go live on April 3rd, immediately after we announce our grant funding for this year, which will be announced on April 2nd, so very exciting. So April 3rd is when the eligibility form will be available through our website. It's a very, very straightforward form. It takes the place of a traditional letter of intent or a letter of inquiry, but that is a simple yes or no, about 10 questions just to make sure that you are eligible before you go to your full application. We don't want you to be wasting your time with a full application if you're not actually eligible. And we'll talk about the eligibility in a moment. So we do have an online application due by June 1st, as I mentioned before. We have the site visit stage where members gain that deeper understanding of your project. And then we have the finalist presentation to the entire Impact membership when they vote. So just to go through the eligibility, they are all fairly standard. These here listed on this slide is the organizational eligibility requirements. So some of you are going to be familiar with these because you've already applied in the past. We have not changed our eligibility criteria. So rest assured that it's exactly the same. So if you previously applied, everything is the same as before. For those of you who are new, these are very, very important, and that's the reason for our eligibility form. We will review that, and you'll only receive a link to your application if you're successful and that you are actually eligible to apply. So this is an important stage. So do contact us with any questions, but they are fairly standard. You need to be registered as a 501c3. Importantly, you need to serve Monmouth County. However, your headquarters can be located outside of Monmouth County. The important thing is that your proposed project is going to benefit Monmouth County. You need to have been in operation as a 501c3 for a minimum of 36 months prior to applying. Possess 2 years of financial statements, and our finance team is going to go and talk about the financial requirements in a bit, so I'll leave that to them. One of the most important aspects of our requirements is this minimum annual operating budget of $100,000. So that includes both gross revenue and operating expenses. And that's an important thing to note. The reason for that is, we really want to ensure and meet our responsibility to our membership, that the organizations that will be provided with funding are financially secure and have the infrastructure and resources to manage a six-figure grant. But we also, please note also, we're a network of impact groups. There are over 50 groups worldwide. And some of them actually, this requirement is at the minimum is a lot higher. It can be sometimes 3 million or 5 million. At Impact 100 Jersey Coast, our decision was to make that 100,000 to give that reassurance to our membership, but at the same time, make our grant application process as accessible to as many nonprofits here in Monmouth County as possible. So I've just told you that it needs to be a minimum operating budget of $100,000. However, there is an exception to this requirement. And this is important because we do know that a lot of organizations in Monmouth County are mostly volunteer run and may not have that budget yet. And they may not also have been established for 3 years prior to applying. Those two requirements do not apply if you are a non-lead organization and you're applying as part of a collaboration. So we get quite a lot of questions about this, and we just wanted to make sure that we understand that all of the other requirements still apply, but those two do not. So a collaboration is where two 501c3 nonprofits will come together to implement a project together. So they will actually be sharing impact grant funding to implement the proposed project. So one organization is identified as the lead. They have the fiscal oversight and the accountability for the entire grant amount, and the funds will be given to that lead organization to distribute as necessary. Okay, so, that lead organization must meet all of our eligibility requirements. The non-lead organization would only have to submit a letter of commitment as part of the application, and they do not have to have that minimum operating budget, and they also don't have to have been established for 3 years. And we hope that encourages the more startup, younger organization, enables them to apply into our process. Important to note that by collaboration, we do mean that you'll be sharing that grant funding. That should not be confused with contributing partnerships, which are coming together to implement the project in some way. We really encourage partnerships like that, but that wouldn't be a collaboration under our definition if you're not actually going to be sharing the grant funding. We can take questions on that because I think that piece is quite important, that differentiation. Sometimes we've had people submit as a collaboration, but in fact it was really just resources shared, people coming together to share resources to implement the project. Okay, so that's the collaboration piece. These are a list of our project criteria. And it is important that the benefit is primarily to Monmouth County. We did have a question come in with registration regarding would you consider funding a project that also benefited residents of Ocean County? So we really want to take a pragmatic approach to this. Our priority is to benefit Monmouth County, of course, but we are very cognizant that we share a border with Ocean County. And so we're really looking at the intention of the program or project. And if the primary intention is to benefit Monmouth County, and you're based in Monmouth County, it's highly likely that you'll be eligible. But if you have questions, do reach out to us and we can just go over that with you. But yeah, it is important to sort of look at the specifics and take it on a case-by-case basis. If you were to us to fund, for example, a mobile health centre on a bus, and that bus only went around to Ocean County, that really wouldn't be something that we could consider at this time. However, if the bus were to go around Monmouth County and to briefly go across the border to Ocean County to pick up a couple of people, we have had a situation, question like that. That, by all intents and purposes, is benefiting Monmouth County. Also, if you're based in Monmouth County and people are coming to you for your service, you may have a unique service that is providing service to New Jersey, which covers potentially multiple counties, and they're coming from there for this specific service. We've had that before as well. And again, if it's based here in Monmouth County, it's highly likely that it would be eligible, but we can always answer questions on that. So a new program or an expansion of an existing program, very important. We've had questions about needing to create a brand new program in order to be able to apply into impact, and that really isn't the case. What our members are looking for is to fund a project which is clearly defined with measurable impact and which has the potential to be transformative. So you really just want to make sure that it's clear to us what the project is, and it very much can be an expansion of an existing program. We don't want you to be jumping through hoops in order to create something purely for this grant opportunity. So again, the finance team is going to talk more about project budget. It obviously needs to be equal or greater than the grant amount. And anything less we wouldn't be able to consider that. So that would be talked about later by Michelle and Tricia. And you need to expend it within 24 months. And obviously, as I spoke about before, it needs to fit within one of our 5 focus areas. So this is listing out what we do not provide grants for. I'm not going to go through each one. Please do have a look at these. They're, again, very standard exclusions. Just to highlight, we do fund overhead. We understand how important it is to for the successful management and delivery of a project that you have those types of expenses. So they will be accepted as long as they're just reasonable and identified as being an integral part and necessary for the program or project. Then we do accept overhead expenses. In terms of programming expenses, again, we understand that you've got to have staff is critical to implementing any project. So with staff expenses, if they're a large part of the project budget, our primary concern will just be the sustainability of that after the grant period. On capital improvements, just down at the bottom, so we do fund capital improvements. We're delighted to have a grantee on the call, I'm hoping, if she was able to join, from St. Mark's Centre for Community Renewal, which was our latest capital improvement project, which was for renovations. So we do fund them. The point of down here is that you really need to be owning the property at the time, or have a lease with at least 5 years remaining from the date of the grant agreement. So as I mentioned, we have an online application, so our grant team reviews your eligibility form. Only once you've been approved will you get the link to the online application. And as many of you already know, our application is housed on a platform called Foundant. And that is thanks to our fiscal partner, Community Foundation of New Jersey. We are actually a special project under the Community Foundation. We benefit from their 501c3 status, and we receive fund management support from them. So you'll see from this next slide, the reason why I'm telling you this is that when you go on to the platform, once you to log on and to create your account, excuse me, you'll actually see their name, not ours. We always just want to say, don't worry, you're in the right place. This is that we use their platform. So you just create your account. And if you had an account from before, you can probably use the same password and login, but you will just want to remember that, and if you can't, you can just can't remember it, or you can't locate it, you've had a change of stuff, you just reset it. So there's an access code, and all of this comes in the email. So once we've approved your eligibility, all of these details are in the email that we send you. The good thing about this platform is that you can save it saves your work as you go, so you can come out of it, and when you go back in to continue the application at a different time, it will all be saved and ready for you. So in terms of the application itself, we really do appreciate and understand the importance to you of feedback. We have, firstly, just let me say that the content of our application is going to be the same. So for those of you who are reapplying, rest assured that we're not making lots of changes. We don't want to do that to you. It's all the same pretty much as last year. The only tweak that we'll make is to the focus area choice that you make, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. But so it's basically the same as last year. And we do include a preview of our application on our website. We'll be doing that in the next couple of weeks. So by all means, you can go and see the application from our website and download it. So you'll get up and start it ready and started as soon as you like. So while we can't provide tailored feedback to every applicant, we do provide high-level feedback, which we gather directly from our focus area committees, along with our notifications at each stage of our review process. We also provide feedback via members during the review process in other ways, which Beth and we'll talk about in a little bit, during the site visit and also the final presentation rehearsal. So what's important to us is that we really set you up for success in whatever ways we can. So this slide is another way that it's not feedback, but to try to set you up for success. This is a summary of the key things our members are looking at. So this is really important for you to bear in mind when writing your application. On the next few slides, we're going to look at the last 5 points here in more depth. Just to briefly stay with the first 2 points here, our members are really nitpicky. They are looking for a clear and concise proposal with all of the necessary attachments. Please have other people proofread your application, especially if you are reapplying. We are absolutely happy for you to reapply for the same project. We do not want you to have to go back to the drawing board necessarily and invent a totally new project. But if you're going to use the same language, please, if you can be very careful and don't have the wrong dates for previous years. I know it sounds obvious, but it's one of the things that our members don't have any patience with. In terms of your attachments, if you have any issues with the IT or uploading, please just email us immediately with anything separately. We do understand that there can be technology issues, but what we do say is if you do that, please don't wait till the last minute to do it. So just make sure that you're doing that well in advance of the June 1st deadline. And the second point is important. Please be very transparent and upfront about any contingencies. So if there are any permits or approvals that are pending, it's okay if that is the case when you submit your application, but please highlight it. There is a question which asks very specifically for that information. And if those aren't resolved by September 15th, our members simply won't be able to move you forward in the process because of those unknown, the unknown quantities. So you just need to be very transparent from the very start about that. So just to drill into the next 5 points, in a little bit more detail. We've already covered, I think, why the focus area that you're applying to is very important to get right. Between your eligibility and your actual application, you cannot change that. There's no ability to change it. If you feel that between submitting your eligibility and your application, something significant has changed, maybe you've decided to collaborate and it's changed the focus, or maybe something's happened at your organization, which means that, or something in the community where the need has shifted, please do reach out and let us know, and we will obviously make an exception if we can. But we, as a rule, as a general rule, ask that when you submit to eligibility, you're very, very clear about which focus area that you're submitting into. The reason why we're emphasizing this so much is that we have had some that just don't make sense. And so our members have not been able to review it at all or evaluate it. And that's a real shame because it's a waste of your time and all your work. So we are going to change this question to ask you why. The reason for that is that we would like you to feel really good about what you're applying into. And we would like our members to understand the rationale behind your decision. Think about the primary focus and purpose of your project. We had a question that came in with registration. We'd like to implement a music program for children and youth as a second curriculum activity on weekends. I'm assuming that they thought, you know, perhaps this could belong under children or families, or perhaps it should be under education since it's a music education program. That's what I'm thinking. And we can take questions at the end, but with that situation, I think it's really the primary need that you're addressing. Is it because you have a group of families, perhaps that where the parents are working at the weekend, or is it just that during the week these students or these kids aren't able to get music education as part of their schooling, and so the focus is really to educate them in music at a time that works for them? So just really look at the primary focus when you're thinking which would be the best fit. So the next question about transformational impact is really what impact is all about. You know, we're asking you to summarize which the potential transformational impact you'll be able to bring about if you were to receive a grant. And we realize that this is challenging. We're thrilled to have our grant recipients who are going to speak a little more later about this. They'll be telling you about the transformational impact of their projects and how they conveyed that in their application. But you know, while we understand that summarizing this is challenging, we, in our experience, applications that clearly explain that transformation are standouts. They really are. So to help you understand what we're looking for, we've heard from our previous grantees that the 6-minute presentation at the annual meeting is challenging, but it's the most valuable experience in helping to hone their message. So one tip that we are providing you with in answering this question is take that feedback and use that at the very start and throughout your application process, rather than just say, well, I don't need to worry about that unless I become a finalist. Because if you can think what you would present to the membership in those 6 minutes, that will really help you craft this question and summarize the impact that this funding would have if you were to receive it. So we have 3 funding priorities, and we're looking to fund projects that meet those funding priorities. They need to target underserved populations, address an unmet need, very important unmet need, and have a high impact on beneficiaries. So over the 4 years, we've had a lot of answers that describe the impact in different ways, but there was a lot of information that was repeated. So we've tried to tweak these questions so that the repetition of information is minimized and is easier for you to speak directly to each. So what and who is the underserved population? Why and what ways are they currently underserved? For example, perhaps government funding doesn't include them in their policy right now, or perhaps an urgent, unrecognized, on-the-ground insight that you have that you can highlight for our members. What is the unmet need and how will your project address it? So what's the gap that current service providers aren't filling that your project will? What would happen if your project didn't happen? Why is it absolutely necessary to do your project at this time in our community? And lastly, high impact on beneficiaries. So there are different ways that you have high impact, and we understand that. So we're looking really for, are you going to be impacting more people as a result of our grant? So it's a wider reach, or are you really going to have a higher impact on the individuals? So we ask that you use both outputs and outcomes to tell your story. And then we've just tried to really illustrate that in the next few slides. And I'm very conscious of time, so I'm going to move along as quickly as I can. The table you'll see over the next few slides is increasing by column, just to give you a sense of how to really expand and hone and strengthen your answers. So, you know, the less effective is an example of being a little too vague, you know, the ability to serve our growing number of patients with enhanced services. So very, very vague and broad. So try to be as specific as you can, 300 clients, you know, reduce waiting time, and then be even more specific. So what time reduction is expected? And what is the outcome of that? So that standalone is great, but what does that mean for the patients? For example, there'll be less stress during the health visits. And then again, how will you track and measure that? Let us know what those tools are. Is it through current service statistics that are available, or are you going to have your own tools such as before and after patient surveys? Now, the sustainability piece just really helps us understand not only the immediate but the long-term benefits. And you know, you don't necessarily have an ongoing project. If it's going to come to an end within the 24 months, that's great. Just tell us how you're going to responsibly bring it to an end. But you know, if there is a ripple effect or a long-term impact, let us know what that looks like and what success would be. So if those 300 more clients are going to be provided with, for example, a piece of equipment each, what does that, how would you measure that ongoing success beyond the grant period? So might it be measured, for example, in the number of times those pieces of equipment are going to be used? So really tell the whole story for our members, and that will really strengthen your application. So now I'm going to hand over to my colleagues, Michelle and Tricia, who are going to take you through the financial requirements.
Thank you, Ro. This is Tricia Frankenfield, and along with Michelle Peoples, we are the co-chairs for the Impact Finance team. First of all, I just want to go over the required financial information that you're going to need to submit to us with your application. So first, we're going to need your top 5 institutional donors. Please note whether this money is committed versus what is projected for this year. We're also going to want to see your past 2 fiscal years as well. Then we're also going to want to see your financial statements. We'd like to see those for the past 2 years as well. And we're going to need your budget for the current year, and then the year-to-date actual versus budgeted figures for the current fiscal year. We will get your 990s from GuideStar. And then something else I'd like to highlight on this page is we also allow you to give us a financial narrative. This is optional, but this gives you an opportunity to explain anything that's in your financials that might be unusual, something that has occurred, just to give us a little bit more color. We're happy to also talk further with you directly if there's anything you want to disclose to us. Finally, and also very important, is the project budget. We're going to give you a template that's in Excel to fill out for us. We're going to go over that in more detail in a little bit. Next page, please. Now I'm going to go over some tips to how to strengthen some of your financial information for basically what we're looking for in your application. So very important, we don't want to see any gaps. So basically we're looking for the last 2 years as well as this current year. So it's basically 3 years of financials that we're looking for. If in the event that you do not have audited financials, that's okay. We just need it signed by your executive director that is complete and accurate. This is a very common issue. If your audited financials are not yet available when you are submitting, that's okay. You can give us the draft version and just note it in the financial narrative box that I discussed earlier. And also, I know this process goes over several months. So if you do get those audited financials later on, you can submit those to us and we will take them. I know that sometimes these 2 years of financials can be very large files, and sometimes you may have trouble downloading them to our site. If that happens, don't worry, you can email them to us. At the bottom, you can circle it. It's grants@impact100jerseycoast.org. Just make sure you do that because we don't want to see anything incomplete in your application. So now I'm actually going to hand this over to my colleague, Michelle Peoples, and she's going to go over some more tips and also go over that project budget.
Good morning. So as Ro mentioned earlier, obviously we want the project budget to equal or exceed the amount of our grant, which we will be telling you around April 3rd, once our membership cycle has completed. Simple proofreading, recalculations, we want to make sure it adds up correctly in subtotals. For example, you are requesting 4 Chromebooks at $200 each. We would want it to say 800 at the total line, not 1,000. Make sure the project narrative and the budget matches. If your project requires a new program director, for example, we would expect to see a line item for that new program director's salary in the project budget. Lastly, you want to make sure it's realistic. A new vehicle, perhaps, is probably not only going to cost you $100, as much as we wish it would. If we look at the template itself on the next slide, if you have applied previously, the template itself has not changed. We do realize it's more work for you to use our form rather than your own. We apologize for that, but just realize it's for the reviewers and it helps in the process for each committee reviewing these applications that it's more apples to apples, leveling the playing field as much as possible. So if you look at the template, the top portion is the income piece, how your project is going to be funded. So our grant amount will be in there when we have the number. And if you have any other funding sources, you could list that here as well. It's important that the budget amount agrees to the income amount, that you have full funding for the costs that you will detail at the middle to bottom of the page. The reviewing committee members change every year, but one constant seems to be that all committee members reviewing these applications want to see that Impact 100's funding of a larger dollar amount project is still impactful and transformational. Some examples of a quote unquote good project budget would be obviously the proofreading, the calculations, and as much detail as you can provide. In the personnel section, for example, we know the cost of people is not just the salaries, but their benefits, payroll taxes, fringe, etc. So if you already tell us that it's all inclusive there, we won't have to come back to you later asking if it is or not. So this template and the application itself is available on our website. I know it's hard to see, it's really small in the slides, and if we were in person, we were going to provide you with handouts, but you can go on the website and pull it down from there as well. There's also a quote unquote bad example, what we wouldn't want to see, but it's pretty much the opposite of everything in the good example. So we don't need to focus on the bad. Betsy McKnight is going to discuss the site visits. Betsy?
Good morning, I'm Betsy McKnight. I'm the nonprofit coordinator for Impact 100 Jersey Coast. So basically the site visits are for the 5 or so finalists that are selected in each focus area, obviously depending upon the amount of funding that we get. At this stage, basically it's generally a due diligence review. You'll do some introductions of some key people, and you will have a site captain who is assigned to you, and that's basically going to be your cheerleader. It's going to be your the person who's going to walk you through it. It's going to be your connection to Impact and to that FAC. So I encourage you to take full advantage of everything that the site visit captain provides for you, and to really lean on them and to use them. You can go back to the next slide. Thank you. So to make your site visit really work, this is your opportunity to bring your project to life. You want to choose staff members who are going to make the best case for you. You want to choose people who are potentially going to be the people who are going to be your presenters in the annual meeting. So this is almost like, you can consider this almost like a dry run. Also, if applicable, you might want to give a brief tour of your facilities, but again, focus on the project. We don't need to see your boiler room unless that's where your project's going to happen. You want to sort of showcase those areas. By all means, if it's going to be a renovation, show us, we want to see, why it needs to be replaced or whatever. But again, focus it to your project. We can go to the next slide. Thank you. So you've had your site visit and you've made it to a finalist, and so now you're at the presentation. The presentation is basically going to be your chance to present to the entire membership at the annual meeting in person. It's one member, one vote, and the grant recipient is announced that evening. It's important to remember that there's going to be a one-page, finalists will present it's 6 minutes, and it's definitively 6 minutes. There's no bells and whistles. So it's just one speaker speaking to the audience. There's also going to be a one-page info sheet. And you do want to keep in mind that there's going to be absentee voting. So you want to make that one pager be as compelling as possible, and you will have a chance to review that before it goes out. We want to make sure that you understand that the night of the presentation, you really want to lead with heartstrings. Emotion and passion and the human elements are key when delivering your presentation. If you're going to use statistics in your presentation, you're going to want to use ones that are specific to Monmouth County, if at all possible, and to the audience themselves, if at all possible. That really gives you a way to connect. And I think that pretty much wraps it up. We will get wish lists from all finalists, and that will be made online to your membership. I'm sorry, to our membership. Next slide. Okay, and then in terms of overview, as our members want us to be good stewards of their donations, there is a grant agreement that will be signed. And we also are asking for interim and final reports. Excerpts of these reports are taken, with your permission, of course, for member newsletters, because our members really like to stay focused, to stay connected with recipients and feel like they are part of the process. And also sometimes we invite grant recipients back to some of our annual meetings and to some of our events that take place during the year. Next slide. So the benefits of this, of the process, the exposure to philanthropic-minded women can't be emphasized enough. I mean, you really are getting a chance to showcase your organization that some members might not have even been aware of. It also gives you the opportunity to have the wish lists, which we mentioned before. The other thing I would say is that a lot of organizations have said that just going through the process has helped their organization tremendously in terms of focusing, realizing what is important. So I urge every organization that's hearing this to really use this process as a chance to make your organization the best that it possibly can be. Next slide. Should you reapply? Absolutely. there is no question of the advantages of reapplying. The pool of applicants changes, so who you're up against changes every year. The impact membership changes, so who's going to be voting for you or judging you is going to change. And the focus area committee composition changes, so the people that are going to be reading your application, it's a new audience every single year. Also in the past, we've had recipients who applied the year before, became finalists, didn't quite make it, and then the next year they were the recipients. So there is no question that there are benefits to reapplying. Next slide, please. Finally, these are the important dates. They're pretty self-explanatory, so I'm not going to go through them in the interest of time. I just would like to reiterate what Rose said, which is, please try not to wait until you're right up against these deadlines before you submit. Take into account, technical glitches and things that happen. You don't want to miss a deadline until the 11th hour. That being said, I believe at this time I'm going to turn it over to Jenny Glover and our panel.
Good morning, everyone. I would like to just officially welcome all of our 4 past grantees who are with us this morning in November. We were so thrilled to welcome 4 new nonprofits into our impact family. So with us this morning, we have actually, we thought who better to really talk about their experiences with the impact process, with their application, than the folks who conveyed it so successfully, and it really resonated with our membership. So with us today, we have actually our 4 nonprofits. It's worth noting that 2 of them are returning finalists that had applied in the past, and 2 were brand new to our impact process. So it'll be great to provide an overall sort of perspective from varying degrees of coming into the process as returning versus brand new. Ro, if you want to change the slide so we can officially welcome everybody.
Hey there, sorry Jenny, just to let you know that unfortunately I do not have the slide announcing our grant recipient panel. I apologize for that. So if we could welcome them just orally, that would be great. I apologize for that.
Okay, we have Matthew Honold with Asbury Park Music Foundation. We have Cindy Ziff with Clean Ocean Action. We have Deacon Rose with St. Mark's Community for Renewal. And I'm sorry, the other name is Ro, if you could step in here.
Yeah, we're also welcoming Lauren Walden.
Lauren Walden with CASA, of course, with court-appointed special advocates. So I'm going to ask each of our grantees at this point, if you want to unmute when I sort of reach out to you and call your name, if you could very briefly describe the intended transformational impact of your project. Obviously, the way in which you were able to concise that real impact to our community resonated so much with our members. So would love to just get a brief explanation from each of you to explain to our upcoming applicants. So Matthew, I'm going to start with you and we'll just sort of go down alphabetically based off of your organization.
All right, Asbury Park, that's the beginning of the alphabet. Can you hear me?
Yep.
All right, hello everybody. Good to be here. Thank you for inviting us all to speak. So our project is called the Music, Business, and Technology Program. And so what the Asbury Park Music Foundation does is we do a lot of live music events in Asbury Park, focused on uniting the community is one aspect. And then the other aspect of our programming in general is educational programs. So up until the Impact 100 process, our educational programs are all focused on music education itself, so teaching instruments, teaching beat making and some technology focus like that. But then when we came to the Impact 100 process. Our director, Jim Lenskold, the whole thing is really his brainchild, so credit to him. Said, how can we take the kids, because we have a lot of kids who are in the programs but are not necessarily like love to do the music for music's sake. They're like helping their friends, they're, you know, posting on social media and organizing and things. So so we designed the program to give skills to underserved population. You know, there's a lot of low-income population in Asbury Park, and give them skills to economic mobility and that are related to music, but we use music as a vehicle to access like technology skills and business skills. So the program is broken down into video production, audio technology, and we call it Record Label 101, which is really like a marketing and promotion focus. And so we're doing projects and just actually launching officially tonight, which is exciting. And this was really transformational for the organization in expanding the possibilities of the programming we offer, and then also transformational for the population we serve, in that we're not just trying to give them, you know, a life-changing opportunity in music, which is great for your soul and everything, but a life-changing opportunity that can lead to a way out of poverty, and giving them skills in these areas. And then also bringing in members of the community in Asbury Park who work in those areas and making connections into the existing music economy in Asbury Park. And then as these kids grow up and get older, graduate from high school, they'll have opportunities to work with the very same people. So actually, you know, creating pipeline to job opportunities for them, and, you know, maybe even redefining what's possible in their lives. So
that's great. Thank you so much, Matthew. Cindy, I'll send it over to you to talk just a little bit about Clean Ocean Action's intended impact for Monmouth County.
Great, thank you so much. Can everybody hear me? I'm on?
Yep.
Great, thanks. Good morning. Clean Ocean Action was very honored to be the first environmental project selected by Impact 100 Jersey Coast. And it's for a project we call the Student Environmental Advocates and Leaders. And it's based on a program that Clean Ocean Action had several years ago, where we engage high school students to become environmental leaders in their own communities on different environmental issues. And in today's world, with the earth in such peril, this program, I think, really needed to come back in a big way, and make it enhance the program to make it larger and focus on, in particular, underserved community groups. Within the 10 school districts that we selected, we'll be identifying one to two students per school district, and then scaling up. These students will all be working together collaboratively on environmental projects within their own communities that they select, so that they can turn perhaps their overwhelmed feeling about the environment being in such peril into action, that they can then become empowered with learning that there can be challenges, but if they get involved and do the work, they can be problem solvers and leaders for their communities. It will also teach them how to collaborate with folks from different communities. Kids from, you know, the entire breadth of Monmouth County, from Keansburg to Asbury Park, will be engaged and, you know, working together. There are common themes through all civic and environmental work that they will find, but then individually they will learn about each other, which I think will help improve civil and civic engagement. At the end, each of these leaders will be building out into their communities. They'll be not just meeting with the school board, but they'll be meeting with Rotary clubs or chambers of commerce, community groups throughout their local communities, to explain the projects, explain the environmental concern that they have, and then what their vision is to solve the problem. thereby engaging their entire local community and also fostering a network that would provide sustainability for the program going forward. And, you know, through this whole experience, give life-changing opportunities to these students, and hopefully, you know, making that huge impact that Impact 100 is all about. I'll also just add that the funding did also provide for us to include a videotaping aspects of the program throughout, so that we can capture these moments of these shy students and insecure students. And then as they go through the training programs and they become more and more confident, show them as leaders at the end, so that we can utilize that photo for gaining community support for the program, as well as engendering new SEAL students for future years, so that the sustainability elements were really a key component for us.
Great. Thank you so much, Cindy. Before I introduce our next grantee panelists, I do want to just remind anyone, if you have any questions for any of our grantees, or just any questions for our grants team in general, you can find me, Jenny Glover, under the participants. If you go down to the bottom of the screen and click on participants, there's a chat function where you can click on my name and then send any questions through, and I'll be able to put those through. Many of you actually submitted questions in advance of this presentation, so we tried our best to weave those into the presented slides. But if you do have any questions, even outside of this webinar, you can always send an email to grants@Impact 100 Jersey Coast, and we'll make sure to get those. But please feel free to connect with me via this online chat option if you have any questions, you know, pertaining to any of our 4 grantees. I'm now going to turn it over to Lauren Walden. And Lauren, I apologize for your name escaping me briefly this morning. She is with CASA, and I'll let you say a few words.
Sure. Hi, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, great. Thank you. No problem. So CASA stands for Court Appointed Special Advocates of Monmouth County. We are obviously a nonprofit, and what we do is recruit, train, screen, and support volunteers from the community to advocate for children who are in foster care. They have all been removed from their homes due to abuse or neglect. So we apply for this grant in order to help grow our program. So it's basically a growth grant. And the way we're going to be using the money is to reach a greater scale, basically. So we're going to hopefully serve more children. We're shooting for serving all the children in out-of-home care in Monmouth County. And to do that, we needed to look at marketing, visibility efforts, and strategies. And in order to recruit more volunteers, also board members, and increase our staff as well. So that's where we're going.
Great, thank you. And finally, Deacon Rose with St. Mark's. If you would like to say a few words, we'd love to hear about your project as well.
Excellent. Thank you. Good morning. And thank you all for inviting us to speak this morning. So as Ro had mentioned earlier, we do actually have a physical plant expansion project in way. We are a soup kitchen and a food pantry in Keensburg that's been in place since about the 80s. And believe me, our equipment showed it. It was, I found some original pictures of when the equipment was installed in the 80s. And this impact grant has really allowed us to expand our kitchen space to make it larger, more inviting. So not only can we serve more clients, but also to be able to serve more volunteers, because, you know, people need a place to give back. And so we can now get more people in our kitchen and serve our clients with more transformational activities rather than just giving them a meal. We serve about 4,000 hot meals a month, and we have 700 registered families for pantry that we serve, you know, extensive groceries to every month, several times a week. But now, how do we provide them classes? You know, classes with things like, how do you make a chicken last more than one meal? How do you use more plant-based foods? You know, more nutritional, more health and wellness for our clients, but also giving our volunteers a place to have an inviting place where they can also give back. And so this grant has really afforded us the opportunity to not only look at just that expansion of our space, but how do we better bring transformational activities? It allowed us to add additional staffing, that their focus in their life work can be about figuring out how do we find that next best thing to serve the community.
Great, thank you, Deacon Rose. And I'm actually going to stick with you because as a first-time applicant in 2019, we want to sort of now get into some questions related to specifically to the application, because that's what all of our upcoming applicants will be focusing on over the next couple of months. And we want to really provide as much feedback or rather sort of suggestions for success as we can. So as a first-time applicant last year, was there any question or sort of aspect of the application that you found most challenging? And how best do you feel that your organization tackled it?
So some of the questions seemed at first glance a bit redundant. But what it allowed me the opportunity is to really focus in, because I was looking back over the application last night. Every question had a highlighted word. And so as I was looking at the applications and going through with it, while it seemed redundant, there was also, it allowed me the opportunity to really hone in and focus on exactly what was it that we were thinking about as a mission, as a transformational opportunity, as who are we serving? Why are we serving them? And just the process through the application itself and the feedback that we got, and I'm sorry if I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but even the feedback through the site visit, through the process, through the preparing for the speech, just the love and respect and just that everybody wants us to succeed was phenomenal. I mean, it just really, the full transparency that I felt comfortable giving you guys, the full confidentiality that you assured us, just really made it a very good process. Yes, you're going to have redundant questions, but it really helped me to hone in on what exactly is my message.
That's great, thank you. And Lauren, Casa was also a first-time applicant. You mentioned when you were describing the impact of your project that yours was really an expansion. And so maybe you can speak a little bit to how you were able to, ensure that you were showing, very specific figures, with this money, it's not just we're able to serve more people, but to, some of the information that Rose shared earlier on those, how to have a successful application, we shared, very specifically say with these funds, we were able to, we'll be able to train X number more of volunteers, X number more of children. So maybe, if you could sort of speak to that a little bit as also a first-time applicant, that would be terrific.
Sure, yes, we were very careful in making sure we gave specific numbers. So we actually said we would serve 110 never before served children over the 2 years, because ours is a 2-year grant. And also that we would train, I think about 12 to 18 new volunteers per quarter of each year. So actually, no, for the quarter of the grant cycle, the 2 years. So we were, really careful in making sure we put those exact numbers in. I think that helped us as well. I also just wanted to go back to what the deacon spoke about, that was our point as well. There are a couple of questions that did seem redundant, and I think the new applicants need to make sure that the person writing, filling out the application is an experienced grant writer or really knows the program very well, because the way we tackled it was because our executive director does have a history of grant writing experience, and she knew how to break down the answer into 2 parts without it being repetitive. So that's one of our tips for the upcoming applicants.
All All right, well, thank you, Lauren. Cindy, I'm gonna send it to you now. You were, as a returning applicant and finalist, what were some of the key areas in the application that you felt that your organization sort of changed or improved in order to be more successful your second time around?
Thank you so much for the question. It really was the feedback that we got the first time and the second time actually, for us to really hone in on what the value added would be to underserved communities. How is it relevant? Why is it important to these underserved communities? How is it that we're going to prove that this will be applicable in those underserved communities? And I think that was thanks to the feedback that we got. And in addition, we did a lot more homework in that we really validated the different aspects of the program. If we said that there is a need in these programs, we really reached out to the communities in advance and said, how would you, to the schools, would you appreciate this kind of program? How would you be able to participate? Would your students be able to participate? Just to make sure that we were providing a service that A, we thought was needed, but B, was absolutely validated, and we could prove it with numbers, and we could prove it with testimonials from the different schools. And I can't emphasize enough what the deacon said as well. The cheerleading, the feedback, I mean, the support system, everyone in the group really wants you to succeed. And so really pay attention to their feedback, because they're giving you all kinds of clues. And after you get that essential feedback, really double down on focusing in on that. And I just wanted to mention it all. Also, I forgot to mention, I can't believe it, that part of the grant too allows us, we just got a new office in Long Branch, and it empowers us to be able to make that kind of, a beacon, a centralized location for the grassroots organizing we'll be doing.
That's terrific. Congratulations. And Matthew, before I turn it over to you, I just wanted to mention to everyone here, there was a question about just reconfirming or sharing some of those key important dates here. So Ro put the slide back up for your reference. I do also want to note, though, that after this webinar, we will be sending out an email link to this presentation, all of these slides, along with a recording. So it's something that you'll be able to reference back, so you don't have to be feverishly writing notes throughout today. Matthew, if you want to sort of share, you were a finalist the year before, and any sort of shifts that Asbury Park Music Foundation made that you feel propelled you to become a grantee this year. Is Matthew still with us? He may have had to jump off.
Oh no, I'm sorry. I'm here. That was I didn't unmute my microphone. Sorry about that.
No problem. Go ahead.
So 3 main things from going from the first year to the second year. The first thing is we, there was a small prize for being a finalist, even though we didn't win the first year, and we took that money and launched a pilot version of the program. So we actually started the audio technology portion of the program in 2019 as we were reapplying for the grant. And then the second thing is we tweaked the program proposal itself. So we changed, I think the first year we had a focus on app building and like that kind of technology, and it didn't really fit with the overall program as much. We changed that to the video production focus, which I think works a lot better with the projects that we're doing. And then the third thing is just the process itself. Again, like we knew what to expect from the site visit and the 6-minute pitch. I'm not the one who gave the 6-minute pitch, but I know having done it, it's a clarifying thing the first year to go through that, and even just having having made the pitch and then having to do it a second year, I think it just strengthened our application. And Jim, who gave the pitch, I think had a better idea of that. Also, I think I'm the only one here who is a collaborating organization, right? So we collaborated with and are collaborating with the Boys and Girls Club of Monmouth County. So that was another part of what we tweaked in the proposal, was how that collaboration is going to be set up, and between our two facilities and transportation and responsibilities and everything like that.
Great.
So,
and as we sort of, finish up here, I'd like to ask each of our grantees, and Lauren actually just messaged me that she lost our audio, so I'm not going to start with her. She's going to try to reconnect. But if each of you could just give maybe one or two sort of key tips, if you will, maybe something that you wish you had known, prior to starting the process, that looking back, on the other end now, that you could sort of impart on any of our applicants here, that would be terrific. Deacon Rose, I'll start with you.
Sure. I guess I didn't fully appreciate how critical that 6-minute speech was. And in hindsight, I may have weaved my message differently into my application and used more of my application in that speech. But the feedback that I got, not only during the practice sessions, but from my coaches and from my team, throughout, was phenomenal. I am blessed with a corporate background of having, been up speaking. Also, in my clerical background, I speak. But making sure that we're speaking to the heartstrings of this audience was just, the place where I could really let the work that we have shine. Not everyone gets to read the application, but if you can think about that think about the end in mind, as somebody, I can't remember that author, but think of the end in mind, and that 6-minute speech is really the end that this all fills up into.
Mm-hmm. And I think that, thank you for mentioning that, because we did reference that as really sort of a key aspect of a successful application, which is, even if it seems that we're thinking so far ahead that, only maybe a small percentage of our applicants will get to that, final presentation moment, that to think of it in those terms when filling out your application really helps, I think, all of the organizations to really hone their message as best they can, and to really sort of focus on what the key aspects of those transformational impacts are. So if you think about it, in that 6-minute, almost sort of concise way, I think it will actually benefit just the very preliminary stages as well. So yeah. Thank you for referencing that.
Yeah, I mean, it's about being succinct, but making sure the message comes through. And even in writing the application, we're not getting paid by the word.
Absolutely. Well, Lauren, welcome back. I'll let you speak now. I had asked Deacon Rose, and you were off for a bit, but I'm just asking each of you to maybe, mention, a key tip or two of things that you wish you had known maybe prior to embarking on the process with us, that looking back now, you think really would have helped, maybe sort of shift the way that you approached either the application or any part of the process.
Yes, I'm back. Thank you. Sorry. I unfortunately, my executive director wasn't able to be on this call because she had another meeting to be in. And she's the one that really did this whole application. So I'm probably not the best person to answer this question.
Okay.
I apologize for that.
That's okay. Anything just based off of your own personal experience, key tips, not just even necessarily application driven, but just even working alongside Impact 100, that things that you didn't know prior to embarking on this adventure with us.
Sure. Well, one thing I can think of is, as somebody said before, when you are doing, I think it was Betsy, the 6-minute speech at the meeting, there are no videos allowed. And what we usually do when we do our presentations is we show a video because that's so impactful, you know, to see that. So you really need to think about how you're going to convey your message verbally, you know, without those aids. So I think that's very important because I know a lot of groups probably do use audiovisual, you know, instruments in order to tell their stories. So that was one thing. And just be prepared. The site visit was very extensive, asked a lot of questions, and you need to have the right people in the room in order to really explain, you know, what impact this grant is going to have on your program.
Great, thank you so much. Cindy, with Clean Ocean Action, if you want to sort of give a key tip or two that you think might be helpful to our applicants here.
Hi, yes, thanks so much. It all comes down to that 6 minutes, and I just want to triple what the other folks have said about how important it is. I mean, it is the most empowering and intimidating 6 minutes of your life to be in front of, you know, hundreds of women, but you know, the goodwill and the strength that's in that room helps get you through it. But to prepare yourself for it is really important, to just do it over and over and over again, so that it's almost by memory for you to be able to present that, because it is it's just a striking moment in many ways to be in the room, sharing your passion and your vision of this transformative opportunity that you see for your organization and the folks that you will be engaging in the program. But so I would say that, and then I would just, as the previous speaker said as well, just again, the tips for the site visit. You know, the questions are really good. I mean, sometimes they can feel like they're, you know, there's a lot of them. They ask detailed questions, but the questions are all really good, and it really helps you provide the depth that they need in order for you to be successful. They're not asking these questions because, you know, they're looking to, you know, challenge the concept. They're asking the questions to empower you to be able to improve your proposal so that you can be successful.
Great, thank you. And before I send it over to Matthew to sort of wrap up our grantee panel here, I do just want to remind anyone, if you do have any questions, to please submit them now so that we can hopefully be able to address them prior to logging off the webinar. Again, you can do that by finding my name, Jenny Glover, on under the participant and click the chat function. So submit those questions now, or as we said earlier, if you think of something after the fact, you can always email our grants team, and we'll be happy to address it, you know, one-on-one. Matthew, if you want to speak to a key tip or recommendation based off of your experiences, we'd love to hear from you to kind of wrap things up here.
Sure, thank you. So one thing was like the coordination and collaboration that it was going to take. So I mentioned that we are collaborating with the Boys and Girls Club of Monmouth County. So all the key personnel within the organization, seeing like whose specialty was in what and how we're going to coordinate, like, okay, we're planning this program, but when we implement it, what are all the pieces we have in place internally, and then also networking inside the community in Asbury Park. So we have a lot of guest speakers that are going to be part of the program, and like the people who are working in the music industry in Asbury Park coming to visit the program. So putting those connections in place was something, I guess, that we didn't necessarily anticipate ahead of time, but it was extremely helpful for us and a big part of the process. And then Ro had asked me what the hardest questions on the application were, and I'll go with that. So the track and measure really forced us to think of like how this is gonna sustain itself long term, and how we can use feedback from students and just from the program in general to make this thing evolve and grow in time. And then the second thing was the budget. So just like, what are all the nuts and bolts and every little piece that's going to go into making this program successful? And thinking about that was, you know, in terms of all the equipment and all the personnel that we were going to need was
terrific.
Yeah.
Well, I just want to thank, you know, all of our 4 grantees for your time and effort in speaking to us this morning. You all have been just fantastic partners with us. We are so lucky to have you as a part of our Impact family and for taking the time out. I know that we're all living in sort of uncharted, you know, waters these days. So I know that you're busy, you know, working with your constituents and trying to, you know, best to fulfill the projects that Impact helped to fund. So thank you for taking the time this morning out of your day to speak with us. I do want to reiterate just a few things that the PowerPoint and recording, as I mentioned, will also be available on our Impact 100 website. So you can always reference that under our How to Apply page. If there's any questions, please feel free to reach out to our grants team. As we've referenced in the past, the eligibility link will be available on April 3rd once the funding announcement has been made. If there's any questions, especially because the focus area committee in which you apply becomes final. If you have any questions regarding that prior to hitting submit, please do reach out to us so that we can, you know, provide any sort of, you know, insight or help that we might be able to prior to doing that. And we've had just, you know, fantastic reception to these information sessions and folks that are looking to either apply new or apply again. And you all are really the heart of what we do here at Impact 100. And we want to thank you so much for just being a part of this morning and a part of just even the process as we launch into our 2020 grant cycle. Ro, I'm going to hand it back over to you just to say a few final words. And thank you so much again to our 4 finalists. It was fantastic having you with us this morning.
Thank you, Jenny. Wow, you're a wonderful facilitator. Thanks so much. What a great job. Thanks to our grantees. We so appreciate all you're doing, and thanks for being with us this morning. And thanks for everybody who's been on the call. And we're sorry we couldn't see you in person, but you know, we hope that this has been helpful. Do submit any questions to us. Yeah, good luck with everything that's going on. And thanks again for all you do for our community.
Thank you.
God bless.
All right.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Thanks so
you.
much.
Thanks, bye.
Thanks so much. Bye.
Do you want to leave meeting?
Thank you.
Thank you.